Hello, reconsider, welcome back. So we are avid watchers of Gaia TV. The most popular show on Gaia is Cosmic Disclosure and features David Wilcock and Goode. David Wilcock is a famous author, researcher with a brilliant mind for metaphysics and the suppressed truth of our reality. Goode is a relatively recent key whistleblower who talks about his amazing experiences involved in various aspects of the secret space program. The show's breadth is wide and it uncovers the truth about reality, consciousness, secret space program intel, and other connections to extraterrestrials. On the show, they occasionally interview other whistleblowers about their experiences, joining the dots between information. The show is now in its 7th season. A recent episode featuring Niara Isley discussed her struggle and story. It was emotional, powerful, thought-provoking. I deemed it important to talk about. The episode was called Darkness on the Far Side of the Moon. Her experiences start to increasingly confirm Goode's narrative, which of late has been under intense attack from people within the truth community. I deem the information important to know. Her rallying call for the future of humanity towards the end of the show was particularly poignant. I realised with me conveying her story, you completely lose the tone and emotion she conveyed. I'm merely repeating hard facts from her delivery. But her delivery felt very genuine, passionate, and incredibly heartfelt. Niara Isley has written a book called Facing the Shadow, Embracing the Light, covering her life in more depth. Niara worked in the military air force as an airman first class between 1979 and 1983, and trained as an auto-track radar specialist. More specifically, she worked with surface-to-air missiles, anti-aircraft artillery radar. This would involve sweeping radar techniques to follow aircraft. It further entailed contacting other radar stations, briefing them on an aircraft's travelling direction for them to continue tracking. Her duties had a dual purpose, one being combat ready to launch missiles against hostile forces, but two, to train US Air Force pilots to avoid radar in combat situations. For the most part, she operated at Ellis Air Force Base and Tonopah. The story begins with Niara being ordered on duty in the middle of the night to operate radar. She was given military fatigues with no insignias or name tags. In fact, all the people she worked with wore unidentifiable military clothing. She was further warned not to talk to any of her colleagues around her. They were treated like cattle. The unidentifiable military uniform usage was further confirmed by Corey, who had been visited by covert military forces before, and again they had no discernible markings. These late-night covert operational events would happen occasionally, and the craft she was tracking were either reverse-engineered technology or extraterrestrial in origin. They were completely different to the F-16s and F-4s she would normally track during the day. The speeds were incredible and would materialise, dematerialise at different points in the sky. They were impossible to track on radar. She remembers officers discussing the results of the radar testing. One standout close encounter she had with a craft she described as a saucer-shaped and very large. The skin of the vessel was almost transparent, a very thin type of metal with a glowing appearance. The lights flashed in sequence, the sound similar to the hum of idle speakers at a rock concert. With a tangible, thick prickle in the air, Niara starts to open up about her spirituality and the fact she has always meditated and since childhood had abduction experiences with grey ETs. She felt the military knew about her abductions, and this is why she was used for covert operations. She also mentioned Dan Sherman, who wrote a book called Above Black to confirm her fears on the situation. He was trained as an intuitive communicator. Again, his military working environment was oppressive and harsh. His job was to track people who were being abducted by grey ETs. The current information we have concerning greys potentially tells us they are biomechanical life forms, incredibly sophisticated robots used by the military to carry out abductions. Utilised as a psyop, the appearance of the greys makes the subject of ETs terrifying to abductees, but also to the wider population at large. It has a powerful, controlling effect. Niara conceded to only having top secret clearance, but the things she was exposed to were way above her clearance. It terrified her. Her story went deeper and even more harrowing. Again, she was taken by military late at night, marched onto a bus with blacked out windows and other military personnel. She was driven to an underground facility and purposely disorientated. They were all led into a room. Alone, she was called into a room with an armed soldier and told to lie fully clothed on a table. Shortly after, a doctor walked in, repeating 3 times, stay calm, and swiftly injected the right side of her neck with an unknown solution. She went into an instant seizure and was dragged by 2 men to a small booth. The injection went straight to her brain. It was conscious altering. She couldn't move. She screamed in terror, distress, and discomfort. Corey claims that chemical injections are used to enhance abilities and have been used many times on remote viewers. Her story increasingly gets intensely distressing. She was dragged out of the booth and sexually assaulted by 2 security guards. One of them had blonde hair and a moustache. She couldn't understand how a fellow human could behave like this. Corey again confirmed that covert military seek out psychopaths and sociopaths with no conscience. Sexual trauma is used to control and wipe memories. During the terrible ordeal, she recalled there were 8 other people present, watching along with a grey ET. But she speculated that the other people themselves were being controlled and maybe warned not to ever to break their own secrecy. The sheer brutality of her treatment was a warning to them. She felt the ET connect with her telepathically. She felt its revulsion to her treatment. Shortly after, she was injected again and then woke up in a hotel room. The details of this are particularly shocking. It provides a window into the treatment of people within covert circles, endured at the hands of military-industrial complex, but also how people's memory is controlled, wiped, blank-slated. They understand deeply how to maintain secrecy through these techniques. Another occasion, she was collected by the same blonde-haired security guard, who she perceived as her handler. Niara is taken to a saucer-shaped craft, given a silver suit and boots to wear. They were sophisticated, intelligently shaping to the contours of the body. They would adjust, vacuum pack itself close to the skin of the wearer. Niara was told to lie in between 2 other men on the craft. They were treated like human cargo. At the time, she didn't know, but the craft was actually bound for the moon. During transit, a reptilian ET came into view on board, from behind the central beam, which according to Corey and David is part of the propulsion system. She was stunned, petrified. It was very tall, had olive green skin and claws. It emanated a very heavy musky odour into the air. It was an upsetting, dramatic encounter. Corey confirmed that being exposed to reptilian is a terrifying experience. They arrived on the moon, the base architecturally like any other base back on Earth. They were used as human labour. One of their duties involved operating electrostatic excavating machines. 2 plates magnetically would repel each other and push earth and rocks away to excavate further expansion of the moon base. They were deprived of sleep, again as a mind control technique. The food was terrible, consisting of gruel and dry bread. Occasionally she did catch glimpses of other ETs, in particular a tall willowy looking ET. Later, after deep hypnosis, Niara realised maybe it was this entity that helped her escape from the situation. The entity could see her energetically and the suffering she was enduring. Her story was so strong and powerful, towards the end of the show it became very poignant, into a rallying cry for humanity. Niara spoke of humanity's programming that existed for millennia. Our consciousness has been suppressed, controlled. We don't truly understand our own potential. We live a lie. Consciousness is the real power. Everything around us is conscious thought. She tells us to be in nature, with friends, barefooted, feel the ground, touch Mother Nature. See bad situations like the Great Barrier Reef dying and visualise it in your mind's eye. It flourishing, living, growing. Collectively we have the power to make huge changes. Her words were so heartwarming, invigorating. I haven't read a book yet, but I noticed a lovely testimonial from Rebecca Hardhat's on the back of her book. And it goes like this. With the utmost praise for the author's work, I submit that writing Niara's books changed her life, and that reading it may change yours. With gentle, poetic prose, she tells her story of disturbing proportions regarding celestials, humans, our government, and military. She makes sense of the senseless. She fearlessly probes our myriad reality. She unleashes her anger, betrayal, and in a final triumphant round, she gains forgiveness. Niara teaches us that beyond hell there is heaven, that higher ETs surround us. Her final lesson is the most powerful. Choose life, love, and alignment with higher extraterrestrials, one with God and our highest being. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.